How do you do? Our program on rediscovering America this month will take on a little lighter tone. The subject or the title is Life in New York. So we go to New York, which is, as you know, one of the most exciting and dynamic cities in the world. Many of the Japanese people may have the impression that New York is a little bit unsafe. It is true, it is not quite as safe as in Tokyo, because Tokyo is by far the safest city in the world, probably. But in spite of that, New York is very interesting, particularly at this moment. I believe it is most exciting city in the world. All kind of things going on in New York all the time: finance, business, music, jazz, ballet, anything, whatever you call it. So we feature our program for this month in the city of New York. And all the interviews for this month will be done by myself, because I happen to be in New York when all these interviews were filmed. The first week, the stage is Soho. Soho, as you know, is located in the southern part of Manhattan, a little bit south of Greenwich Village, and it is very busy and fashionable, and its feature is art. There are many artists working there, and there are many art galleries which attract lots of people, tourists as well as people, as you will see in the interviews. We have two interviews for this week. One is 3 very short interviews which I did on the street corner of Soho, and the other is the interview with Mr. Natvar Bhavsar, who is a well-known artist in the United States. We also have Virginia LoCastro this week too, and we have a discussion afterwards. How are you, Virginia?
I'm fine. I'm looking forward to this because I lived in New York for a while and I love to talk about New York.
Good. So we'll see you after the interview. Let's watch the interview now. Hi.
Hi. How are you today?
Ask you some questions.
Sure.
Are you the resident in this area?
Close by. I've watched this area grow over the years quite fantastically.
How has it changed in the recent 5 to 10 years, I would say?
Well, now it's one of the places for people to come to when they come to New York. I mean, years ago, it was only for the very brave to come here. There were no street lights. The old buildings, only a handful of brave artists, you might say, lived here, and there was manufacturing. But now, as you can see, it's the place to come. The clothing stores, the art galleries. There's probably 200 galleries in this area.
So what would you say is the biggest attraction of this area?
The galleries.
Galleries.
There are about 150 galleries within a 6-block radius alone.
But the people too. This is where you'll see people from Yoko Ono to movie stars, and everybody that's anybody comes to Soho now.
That tall building, that's Wall Street, right?
Yes,
Right.
the Twin Towers, the World Trade Center.
This area is more or less located in between Greenwich Village and Wall Street.
That's right, and if you look north, you see the Empire State Building. So we're ideally situated. You can command a beautiful view of Manhattan. We're central.
How is art as a business?
It can be very good because art knows no national boundaries. Wherever the money is, art follows. So, and this has been this way for centuries. Now we see very many Japanese clients, of course, because of the yen, and we have many clients in Japan, and we have many Swiss clients. So, wherever the money is, you'll find art, and it's not an easy business, of course. People can't sit on a work of art. They can't smell it. They can't touch it really in the same way. But if they have feelings and you can awaken their feelings, then they'll acquire art.
Thank you. Nice
My pleasure.
Yes.
And
Nice
greetings.
Well, we usually think that artists are very stubborn, unfriendly people. So we are
They're not.
That's all right.
We can be, yeah.
They're not. Some are.
We can be. We have our moments.
Successful ones.
You live in this area?
Yeah.
How has this area changed in the past?
too commercial.
Too busy, too commercial.
You don't like it?
We don't like it? No.
It's
You don't like the
untrue
way
to
this has
what
changed?
to the creative process to most people who have lived here for many years.
So this area is no longer amenable to the creative kind of work that you like to do?
Well, it lends itself to it because the lots are large and you have room to work. But the prices of the lots are now much higher than they should be.
What do you do for your living? You paint yourself?
For a living? No. I own a company that manufactures jewelry.
Ah, you look like an artist.
I am an artist.
Yeah.
No, I make sculpture.
I see. How about you? You are an artist
Yeah,
also?
yeah. Starving artist.
Yeah.
Either doing very, very well or being very, very patient. Yeah.
You came here to buy art or something?
No, I live here. I'm an artist. I have a studio and I work and I sell my work and that's how I live.
Well, we envy you. This is a wonderful area to live
It
in.
is. It's really nice. Nice people around here. Yeah, but it's too commercial. There's a lot of stores and now people on weekends. There's so many people here and they hang around and they look in the art. They look at the art and they're very critical.
Yeah.
It's not the real collectors that come on weekends. The collectors come during the week. On the weekends, it's people come and they don't have much else to do and they hang around and they're very critical of the art rather than trying to understand it. Being
Well, thank
quiet
you.
and
It looks like we forced you to
non-judgmental.
talk.
They
You did.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you,
Nice to see you.
So,
You just came here for a walk or something?
yes, I work at this
Oh,
gallery.
you work in this gallery?
Mhm.
I see. Many people come here?
Very many. Mostly tourists on weekends, but there are a lot of people that come to Soho specifically for art.
Any particular kind of work that you specialize in this?
Mostly, surprisingly, European artists. We have well-established European artists from France and from Spain, Japan. We have an artist actually who's Italian who now lives in Japan. He's been living in Japan for about 15 years. But we don't have any American artists. So a lot of Americans like European.
Are those works, I would say, are within the reach of the ordinary tourist or citizen?
Surprisingly, our collectors are getting younger. And a lot of times it's their first purchase.
Why did
with
you
us.
get into this kind of work?
Well, I'm an artist myself.
Oh,
So
what kind of artist? What area are you?
printmaking, I do etchings and lithographs and drawings.
What do you think about the change that this area has gone through?
Well, I wasn't here actually before it changed, so it's difficult for me to really give you a good idea of what, but people that come in the gallery say it's changed drastically. But a lot of people like it because it's a lot safer now than it used to be. And I think that they're preserving some of the
Yeah, I think this
beauty.
area is very
Yeah.
attractive, but some people say that this is too commercial. What would you say?
Well, on weekends it's very commercial. If you live in the area, it's not, I kind of like that. It's very busy. There are a lot of people around all the time. And during the weekend, sometimes you just sort of feel invaded by all the tourists, but it's a real neighborhood kind of feeling when you live here. I live here as well. I live right around the corner, so I like it. It doesn't seem like New York is so overwhelming then, because it's, you have your neighborhood. It's nice.
Good.
It's
Nice talking to you.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much. Right. Now, Virginia, how would you say about those interviews?
Rather interesting. Street people in New York, or just the regular person on the street in New York, usually they have interesting things to say. So,
What would you say about the language they use? Do you think in any way it is typical of New Yorkers?
I think so. I think so. I think the last woman was rather well-spoken. She seemed to be speaking with a lot of knowledge. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah.
The first person that I interviewed said that Soho is the place. Is that ordinary expression?
I think so for Americans. I think previously people might have said that Greenwich Village is the in place. Now people say Soho is the in place, meaning the special place that people go to or people should go to if they want to see the current scene in New York.
Now that means the place or in place means most interesting place, the place to go.
And the most popular place, perhaps, maybe even somewhat trendy place to go.
I see. Uh-huh. Do you go to Soho often whenever you are in New York?
Yes, I used to go often. I used to like to go to Chinatown and Little Italy and Soho, and they're really within easy walking distance of each other. So I have my own restaurant and own coffee shop that I go to in those places.
How would you say about Soho, the couple, the middle-aged man and woman that I interviewed, said that, or rather, they are not very happy about the current state of Soho. They say that it is too commercial. What would you say?
Yeah, I was wondering about that, and I was wondering from your point of view as a Japanese, did you find it very commercial?
Well, yes, I think it is getting more commercial these days. For example, the arts that are displayed or sold in the area are very expensive because so many people get there.
Right.
And restaurants are rather expensive too because of the large number of people, which always go there, so people can take advantage of the crowd.
Yeah.
So I would rather have that area less commercial, more centered on artist activities, for example.
Yes. Yeah.
Now we move on to the second interview. This time we visit the studio residence of Mr. Natvar Bhavsar, a well-known artist. We are located in Soho, New York, and Soho is the area known as the community of artists. There are many artists living in this area who are striving for fame or survival, I would say, right, Natvar?
Both, yes.
So let us start with this area. You have a wonderful, beautiful studio in this place. Would you tell us briefly about this place?
This building is built in 1880. This whole area, entire area of Soho, is now landmark area. Because of that, it's 100-year-old. It's called cast iron district, rather.
Cast iron district.
Yes. Yeah, because if you look outside in the front of the building, most of the building facade is built with cast iron.
So this was more or less the industrial storage area.
When we moved in here, it was storage and small factories and all that. But this area initially was one of the most fashionable districts of New York 100 years ago. These were department stores and likes, as you see Madison Avenue and Fifth Avenue, this was in those days the in place. But it deteriorated, and when we moved in here, this area was called Hell's 100 Acres. For a reason, because there were many fires due to small factories and storage houses and all that. The artists started living illegally in this particular area in 60s. And
during the 60s?
During the 60s. And I'm one of the early settler of this
Why
area.
they chose this place to settle?
This is a very unique, as you see, that to live in a city of this magnitude and to find such incredible space for so little rents. In 60s, you can find this amount of space, which is nearly 4,000 to 5,000 square feet, from $200 to $400 rent.
Incredible.
Which is incredible, rather. I mean, nowhere in the world you can find such a cheap place. And for artists to paint their picture of particular scale or to make their sculpture of particular scale, this was just absolutely ideal. Space. For me, it was just like almost, when I moved in this area, it was a total excitement because as a young person to spend so little money and find such incredible space. I have always loved space, but to really hold it in your hand and to use it without really paying for it in a sense is just terrific, and I have made best use of it, really, I must say, because I have always from beginning strive to paint on a very large scale.
That's right. All those works of yours are very huge.
I started looking around and I found this space and I moved in immediately, right? We have transformed the space completely, rather.
Natvar, how many artists would you say live in this area of Soho?
I can guess that close to between 2,000 and 3,000 artists live in this area. It says, in 60s there were few artists who started here, and then it became so popular that many young artists and even established artists started moving in this area because of this kind of spaces available. And that drove even people who loved art into this area. And it grew very quickly rather. There was enormous publicity built up during 60s in the press, in European press, particularly in art magazine. And it became rather very in place. Like to visit Soho is the most in thing to do now.
Yeah, I guess two aspects in this area. One is, as you mentioned, those areas for those artists, you know, serious sort of trying to make it, and also the commercial side of Soho, which are more or less teamed with sort of commercial galleries and stores for young people, and also those, you know, is that correct?
There are really very few stores in Soho which young people can really afford to buy kind of places. Most of the stores in Soho are fairly very expensive, designer's choice thing. The dining in Soho is very expensive rather now, because it is probably some of the finest cuisine you can find, you know, that kind of places. So it's really not catering any longer to, when we started, it was almost, you know, truck driver dining at the same finale restaurant as we were. And you can buy your full lunch for $2 to $3. Now, to buy your lunch, you have to spend $40 or $50 here.
So this is now one of the most fashionable areas in New York.
It's really, it's not only in New York, it's become an international hotspot, really, basically. It is very popular in Europe to be talking about Soho, you know, and many European artists and many, even the people who like to be in places which are, like as Paris used to be, in place to be, Soho is on that category now, it has become. So the contrast of where we started to what has happened to it now is quite enormous rather. I don't regret it primarily because it has, in a city of this scale, something is bound to develop, and once it develops, it's bound to go to its extreme rather, and that's what has happened to Soho. Art has been the main central issue here. There are nearly 200 or more galleries, and the number is growing. And since it's a very fine dining area, it's in the shopping, there are many designers' shops. So it brings in people, which helps also the gallery business. So in a way, it has really become a more practical aspect, because when we started showing here initially, my exhibition was one of the very first exhibitions of any artist in Soho. And to bring people here then was rather hard, you know. Now, you cannot keep people away from Soho, so that is what has happened. You know?
So this is the area that the Japanese visitors should not miss.
Absolutely
when they come
not.
to New York. Right?
It's a highlight of New York, no doubt.
Okay, so now we'd like to talk about yourself, Natvar. You are one of the most successful artists in this country. Your works are in collection in such well-known museums as Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, Guggenheim Museum, and also Australia National Museum, and also in many of the well-known private corporate collections also. And we are seated right in front of one of your magnificent work. How would you, I would say, what is the title of this work, I would ask you?
This particular work is untitled so far, you know. It's painted in 1971 and it was finished in 1986. It's a very long span enclosed into this particular experience of work rather, you know. But all the works that you are surrounded with, they represent practically my whole entire life in New York, which is, I moved to New York in 1965 and I have lived largely in this particular area. As you know why, because the space, such magnificent space was available in this area. My theme of my work is also based on the experience of space and light. So it's sort of, it's an ideal heaven for me here to work rather, you know. In professional terms, as you mentioned that I'm a successful artist, but I still have higher horizon to reach rather, no doubt, and that means not in only social terms, but in terms of, I've always felt that making art is not trying to make a masterpiece, but it is to fulfill your whole entire life rather, you know. And in my previous interviews I have talked about that I would want to paint hundreds and thousands and millions of paintings, and literally that is very true. That is the kind of basic relationship I have with my work, that I do not look at painting from the viewpoint that I have finished one masterpiece. To me, the whole life span of experience of painting itself, or the process which sort of engulfs me in a way, is very, very important to me rather, you know.
How's that, Virginia?
Oh, very interesting. Yes.
That was one of the, I think, rare opportunities that we have a chance to talk with an artist.
I think so. It doesn't happen often.
I was a bit afraid before the interview that he would be difficult to talk with, but he was very nice, very talkative, and very happily responded to my questions.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Mr. Bhavsar, as you see, is an Indian by nationality. I think he came to New York as an adult.
Yeah.
So I think his English has a rather distinct Indian characteristic.
Yes.
Would you tell us about some of the specific aspects?
Yes. Apparently he probably comes from Western India, probably the Bombay or Gujarati area. And you can definitely tell that his English is influenced by his native language, which is probably Hindi. And although he's speaking pretty standard Indian English, since he went to the States when he was 27, he was, I think, educated then in India, and I think we could consider him an educated speaker of Indian English. Characteristics, he tends to overemphasize the R.
R sound.
Right. And he also speaks more towards the front of his mouth. He dentalizes some of the sounds a bit. And then another characteristic is perhaps, I think it's called hyperbole. He perhaps uses...
Hyperbole.
Yeah, he uses rather...
What does it mean?
Maybe poetic language, or overemphasizes things, like he says, total excitement, or such incredible space, or that is very true, in places where perhaps a native
Tend to exaggerate.
Right, right, where an American or British speaker of English wouldn't probably say the same thing. But it's very clear. It's not, I don't think it's difficult to understand at all.
One thing I noticed is that he uses rather very often.
Yes.
Is that typical Indian, you think, characteristic?
That's, I believe so, yes. And he uses it, I think, as a softener at the ends of sentences rather than in the middle very often.
That, however, is not very recommendable, in other words, for example, to the Japanese English speakers.
No, unless Japanese want to speak like Indians, but probably they don't, so I wouldn't.
How about in terms of accent or the intonation?
Also typical of Indian English. I'm not sure how to characterize it, but with not speaking in a monotone, he has good pitch variations there, I think.
How about his vocabulary? Any sort of deficiency, I would say, because of his later learning of English?
I didn't notice anything. Some cases he tends to reverse words. For example, he said at some point, "I always love red color." And probably, at least an American speaker of English would probably say, "I always love the color red." So syntactic differences, but I didn't notice any vocabulary deficiencies. No, I don't think so.
As a means of communication, he is very effective.
I think so.
Would you agree?
I think so, very much so.
So in spite of his accent, and his vocabulary is very rich, and his English is okay, very expressive.
Yes, yes, certainly.
Later he talked about he would not consider creating a masterpiece very important, or rather he would continue to paint hundreds and hundreds of paintings. I was quite impressed with that.
Yes, yes. He seems to be the true artist, interested in expressing himself through his work rather than money, Perhaps because he has enough money so he doesn't have to be concerned about it anymore and he can be free to express his own ideas and feelings.
We saw big paintings behind, which is one of his works. His painting is usually very huge. Some of them range from 5 meters to 7 meters. You know, it's very big. You know, it's practically covered the whole wall space here.
Yeah.
And it's really, in the interviews also, he was talking about light and space, and that's really the characteristic of this painting. It's colors sort of put one upon another. You know, it's the layers of colors that make very interesting, quiet atmosphere. It's very interesting, really, to be with the artist like him.
Yeah. And I think next week we're going to hear more about exactly how he does that.
That's right. In the interview next week, he would talk about his own art and his own paintings. Bit abstract, maybe difficult, but it is, I hope, very interesting.